My 15-year-old daughter goes to my married brother's house every weekend. When I found out the reason, I couldn't believe it. The age difference between my daughter and my brother isn't that big. She is 15 and he is 20, so they have always been very close since she was a child. My daughter has always matured quickly for her age. At 11 or 12 years old, she already wanted to wear makeup and was very vain. My brother and she were at similar stages in life, so they were very attached. When my brother turned 18, he started dating someone, got engaged, and eventually got married. This caused him to distance himself a bit from my daughter, which was natural as their lives were heading in different directions. After some time, my daughter reconnected with him and his wife, becoming close friends with her. Every weekend, my daughter wanted to go to their house, and I always allowed it because I could see they had a good reputation. My brother's wife was very kind, so I always let my daughter go. One weekend, my daughter went to their house but forgot her phone charger. Since my brother and his wife used iPhones, they didn't have a charger compatible with her phone. She sent me a message asking if I could bring her charger, and I said I would. Later, I ended up forgetting about it, and when I remembered, it was already around 11 p.m. My husband and I decided to take her the charger. When we got there, we called, but no one answered. Since my brother lives in the house below my parents, we went in because the gate was open. We walked to his house, and the living room door was unlocked, so we entered. Everything was very quiet, and I thought everyone was already asleep. I went to my brother's room, and when I opened the door, you won't believe what I saw. I entered the room without imagining what I was about to see, but what I witnessed felt like a punch to the stomach. My daughter and my brother were sitting on the bed, way too close to each other, and when I opened the door, they jumped as if they had been caught doing something they shouldn't. She was wearing one of his t-shirts, which barely covered her legs, while he was shirtless. My heart started pounding. Every instinct in me screamed that something was very wrong. He quickly stood up, trying to adjust his posture, and muttered something about watching a movie together because she couldn't sleep. My daughter, on the other hand, looked visibly uncomfortable, her face flushed, but she didn't say anything. I couldn't speak either. My throat felt tight. My husband, who was behind me, walked into the room as if oblivious to the tense atmosphere and handed the charger to my daughter. As she took the charger, my eyes locked with my brother's. He looked nervous but tried to force a smile. My mind was racing. A movie? At 11 p.m.? In bed? I thought, but I didn't say anything. My husband casually asked if they were about to go to sleep, and they both answered almost in unison, yes. Not wanting to prolong the awkwardness, we left quickly, but a horrible feeling gnawed at me the entire way home. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a mess. My daughter had been spending weekends at my brother's house for so long, and I had never suspected anything. But now, I couldn't ignore what I had seen. Why was she wearing his t-shirt? Why were they so close on the bed? I started connecting dots that had seemed insignificant before. The way they exchanged glances, how she always defended him, how he always seemed to make time for her despite being married. The next day, I decided to talk to my daughter. I sent her a message saying we needed to talk, and she replied hours later, saying she'd call me that night. When we finally spoke, I tried to remain calm, but my tone must have sounded harsher than I intended. I asked her why she had been in my brother's bed the night before. She laughed nervously and said it was normal, that they were just talking. But her voice was shaky, and it only heightened my suspicion. So, I decided to speak directly to my brother. I called him the next day, pretending everything was fine. After some casual chit-chat, I asked him about the previous night. He gave me the same excuse, saying they were just watching a movie. But his explanation was full of pauses and inconsistencies. When I mentioned that my daughter was wearing his t-shirt, he laughed it off, saying she must have grabbed it because she was cold. None of it made sense. Something was being hidden from me, and I needed to find out what. I began paying closer attention to everything. I noticed that my daughter became anxious every time I mentioned my brother. She was constantly on her phone, smiling as if talking to someone special. I asked her casually who she was texting, and she said it was friends but avoided showing me anything. One day, when she left her phone on the table, I tried to check it, but it was locked. I knew I had to dig deeper. The following weekend, as usual, she asked to go to my brother's house. I agreed, but had a plan in mind. Later that night, I drove to his house unannounced. This time, I didn't knock or call. The gate was open, as it often was, and I slipped in quietly. As I approached the living room window, I heard muffled voices coming from the bedroom. I recognized my daughter's voice and my brother's. When I heard laughter and words that sounded far too intimate, my heart sank. My worst fears seemed to be coming true. I took a deep breath and walked in without hesitation. The scene that greeted me shattered me. My daughter was sitting on the bed, holding her phone, while he lay next to her, shirtless again. They were too close, too comfortable, and their closeness was anything but innocent. "What the hell is going on here?" I shouted, my voice echoing through the house. Both of them froze. My daughter dropped her phone as if she had been caught in the act, and he quickly got up, stammering excuses. I didn't want to hear any of it. I started yelling at him, accusing him of crossing every boundary, of being irresponsible and disrespectful. He tried to argue, but his wife appeared at the bedroom door, drawn by the commotion. She looked confused at first, but when her eyes landed on the two of them, her expression changed. It was as if she, too, was beginning to piece things together. My daughter started crying, begging me to stop, saying I was misunderstanding everything. But I knew I wasn't. I don't know how I managed to leave that house with my daughter, but I did. I didn't speak a word until we got home. Once there, I demanded answers, and what she told me made the ground collapse beneath my feet. "We're in love," she said through her tears. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she believed it or that my own brother had allowed this to happen. From that day, everything changed. I confronted my family, and my mother accused me of overreacting, but I couldn't ignore what was happening. I decided to protect my daughter, even if it meant cutting ties with everyone. When we got home, still in shock from everything that had happened, I sat my daughter down on the couch and looked her directly in the eye. She avoided my gaze, nervously fidgeting with her hands, tears still streaming down her face. My husband stood silently nearby, unsure of what to say or do. The atmosphere was heavy, suffocating. I was trying to organize my thoughts, but my anger and frustration made it nearly impossible. "From now on, you're not going to your uncle's house or any other relative's house," I started, my voice firmer than I expected. "I won't allow it. Something very wrong is happening, and I'm not going to let it continue." "Mom, you're overreacting," she cried, her voice shaking. "You don't understand. We were just talking." "Talking?" I snapped. "In his bed? While you were wearing his shirt? Do you really think I'm stupid?" She stayed silent, the tears rolling faster. It wasn't the silence of someone being unfairly accused. It was the silence of someone hiding something. I took a deep breath, trying not to lose control. My husband stepped in, trying to mediate. "Maybe we should calm down and not jump to conclusions," he suggested gently, but I cut him off. "No, this has gone too far already. I am going to protect my daughter, even if she doesn't understand it right now." She tried to get up, but I stopped her with a sharp gesture. "Sit down." "I'm not done." My tone was cold, and she obeyed, muttering something under her breath. "If I find out you went to your uncle's house or met him without my permission, I won't hesitate to take more drastic measures. And as for him, if he comes near you again, I swear I'll go to the police. I don't care if I don't have clear proof right now. He won't get away with this if it continues." "This is ridiculous," she shouted, finally losing her temper. "You're going to tear this family apart because of your paranoia?" "Paranoia?" I laughed bitterly. "You think I'm making this up? You think that scene I walked into is normal?" She shook her head but didn't say anything else. I knew she was trying to find a way out of this, but I wasn't going to leave room for excuses. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, my husband spoke up with an idea I hadn't considered. "Maybe we should take her to a gynecologist just to make sure everything is okay." My daughter's eyes widened, clearly uncomfortable. "That's insane. Don't you trust me?" "No, we don't," I replied without hesitation. "And given everything that's happened, this is more than necessary." The next day, I scheduled an appointment. My daughter spent the day sulking, refusing to talk to me. When we arrived at the clinic, her discomfort was palpable, but I stood firm. During the consultation, I waited outside, pacing nervously. When the doctor finally came out, he said everything was normal. That brought me a small sense of relief, but it didn't erase my concerns. On the way home, I tried to break the silence. "This doesn't change anything. You're still not allowed to have contact with your uncle or any other relatives for now. You're not letting me live my life," she yelled, her voice full of anger and frustration. "I didn't do anything wrong, but you're treating me like a criminal." "I'm not risking your safety over what you think is fair or unfair," I responded, keeping my tone steady. "My job is to protect you, even if you hate me for it." When we got home, she stormed into her room and slammed the door. My husband tried to talk to me. "Don't you think you might be overreacting a little?" We haven't found any concrete proof. I don't need concrete proof, I replied, looking him directly in the eye. My instincts tell me something is wrong, and I'm not ignoring that. If anything happens to our daughter because I decided to be complacent, I'll never forgive myself. He sighed, looking torn, but didn't push further. That night, as my daughter stayed locked in her room, I sat in the living room, trying to process everything. My mind kept going back to that scene, to the way they reacted. There was something there, something that didn't add up, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I knew this wasn't the end of it. My daughter was growing more distant, and the looming threat of my brother reappearing hung over me like a shadow. Something told me he wouldn't just stand by, and I needed to be ready for whatever came next. After days of unbearable tension at home, I made a decision. I needed answers, and my daughter would have to talk, whether she wanted to or not. The distance she had created with me and the silence that loomed over the house were driving me insane. She barely came out of her room, and when she did, she avoided looking at me or speaking to me. Something had to change, and that moment had arrived. That evening, I went to her room. I knocked on the door, but didn't wait for her response. I walked in and found her sitting on the bed, hugging a pillow, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she sighed deeply, as if she already knew I wouldn't leave until I got what I wanted. "This ends now. You're going to tell me the truth," I said firmly. "No lies, no excuses. I want to know what's going on." "I already told you, Mom." "There's nothing to tell," she shouted, exasperated, throwing her hands up as if begging me to leave her alone. "I don't believe you," I replied, pulling my phone from my pocket. "If you don't talk now, I'm calling the police. Maybe they'll get the truth out of you." "That's insane," she yelled, standing up, but I had already dialed the number. "You can't do this." "Want to bet?" I asked, my finger hovering over the call button. "Talk now or they'll handle it." She started crying, tears streaming down her face.
Fine.
"I'll talk," she screamed, raising her hands in desperation. Her eyes were filled with pain, and her voice came out weak, barely a whisper. "I'm a lesbian, Mom," she confessed, as if each word weighed a ton. "I like girls, okay?" That's what I was telling Uncle that day. I asked him for help because I didn't know what to do, how to deal with it. I was wearing his clothes because sometimes I like to dress like a boy. That's it. For a moment, I was speechless. It was as if the world had stopped spinning. Lesbian? Dressing like a boy? It wasn't the answer I expected, and it certainly wasn't the one I wanted to hear. My heart raced, and anger consumed me. "Lesbian?" I repeated, letting the word escape my mouth like venom. "You're telling me you like other girls?" She nodded, still crying. "Yes, Mom. That's who I am." I stood up, feeling a mix of rejection and disbelief. This is worse than I could have imagined," I said, my voice dripping with disdain. "I don't accept this, and I never will. This isn't normal." She looked at me, her face full of pain and anger. "That's why I didn't want to tell you. I knew you'd react like this," she screamed, her voice cracking. "You'll never understand. You'll never accept me." Before I could respond, she ran out of the room and slammed the door. I stood there, frozen, trying to control my breathing. My heart felt heavy, not with concern, but with rage. To me, this was unacceptable. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my mind. But there was something else I couldn't ignore. My brother knew. He knew all of this and kept it from me. The next day, I decided to confront him. I got in the car and drove straight to his house. When I arrived, I pounded on the door, impatient and furious. He opened it, looking surprised and tense. "You knew, didn't you?" I demanded, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I turned to face him in the living room. "You knew she's a lesbian and you didn't tell me." He sighed, closing the door slowly. "Yes, I knew," he admitted calmly. "But that was something she needed to tell you, not me." "She needed to tell me?" I shouted, my voice full of indignation. "And you decided to stay quiet?" "I'm her mother. I had the right to know." "Exactly. And that's why I stayed quiet," he said, crossing his arms. "Because I knew you wouldn't accept it. And clearly I was right. Don't you dare judge me. This is your fault." I screamed, my anger building with every word. "You encouraged her, didn't you? You made her think this is normal." "Normal," he repeated, shaking his head, visibly irritated. "Do you really think being who she is needs your approval?" "I didn't encourage anything. I listened because she needed someone. And clearly, that someone wasn't you." His words hit me like a slap in the face. So, this is how it is? You think you're on the right side? Well, from now on, we're done. You chose to stand against me. He didn't respond immediately. He just looked at me, his expression weary. If that's what you want, fine. But remember, you're not just cutting ties with me. You're pushing your daughter away too. I turned and left, slamming the door behind me. On the drive home, my mind was in turmoil. My daughter was no longer speaking to me. My brother was now out of my life, and everything around me felt like it was falling apart. But even so, I refused to give in. Later that evening, my husband tried once again to reason with me. You need to accept our daughter. She's suffering, and you're making it worse. I'm not going to accept this, I replied, my voice full of conviction. This isn't normal, and I won't pretend it is. He sighed, clearly exhausted by the situation. Then you're going to lose her. And maybe, in the end, you'll lose me too. His words stung, but not enough to change how I felt. I knew my family was on the brink of collapse, but to me, giving in wasn't an option. This truth was worse than anything I could have imagined, and accepting it? Never.